I just want to say thanks, Heidi, for joining us today on the Muzie Show. Today, we'll basically be talking about the Ultimate Music Business Summit, UMBS, and how Heidi is involved and what it is and all of that great stuff. So, would you like to introduce yourself? I can do the whole spiel, but I think you probably got it down a little better. So.
I would love to hear your spiel, but yes, I would love to introduce myself. First, thank you, Sam, for having me here in your space. And I really cherish our friendship. And I just love seeing how our collaborations just keep snowballing. We're just, we met maybe a year or 2 years ago, but it
Yeah,
feels like we've known each other forever. And it's
yeah,
because so much has happened in such a short amount of time. And I really value your insights and your expertise within our community. Thank you so much for everything that you've done through Muzie Live and building this phenomenal platform, bringing people together. It's so commendable. And I just want to say thank you because I don't think I say it enough. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And my little spiel is similar. Is that with the podcasting, and but the advice, and we were sort of talking about this off air, that we've been trying different things and experimenting. But it was you that I came to months ago when I had that other question about podcasting.
Yeah.
It was sort of like, it was one of those where I was like, well, I have no idea who to ask. And then I was like, wait, hold on. Yes, I do. I was like, I know exactly who to ask. What am I doing? I just sent you a message and we ended up talking about that stuff for hours. And it was just in-depth, podcasting advice and kind of back end stuff. And that's the kind of thing that, like, having an expert like you, someone that is approachable, that you can actually reach out to, that has that depth of knowledge, is exactly what we're trying to do here, is build that community with the connection points to all of these other things. That's exactly why I wanted to do this episode, was because you're doing something that I want the Muzie teachers to see and take a part of and benefit from. It's like, that's sort of the whole point here, is there's very little sell going on. It's very much like, hey, if we see a resource that we believe is going to help you, then we're going to connect you with that resource. And in this case, you and the UMBS are the resources, I suppose.
No, I love that. And you're right. And let's put a pin in this, but I just thought of an email that is drafting in my head. Speaking of using your network and using it wisely and tapping into the experts whom you know, you're an expert that I need to pick your brain about when it comes to building a possible software for an idea that my husband has. So we're going to put a pin in that email. I'm throwing it out there now, but you can see, and this is like real life, whoever's watching this can really see, oh, wow, like Sam and Heidi are friends and colleagues. Then we're talking about UMBS. They can't even get to UMBS or introductions yet because the wheels are going with podcasting and software questions. And that is how you and I function. And you and I have always functioned that way. And you were the actual longest first Flute 360 episode coming in at 2 hours long.
Like 30-minute limit. Yeah. We like that.
And we're like, well, it's time for dinner now.
It's literally dark now. I should go.
Time for bed. Yeah. But no, when you find, that friend and expert and colleague that whom you can trust and there's synergy, hold on to that person to, like dear life, because that is rare. And when you can find that magic and you can find people to complement your set of skills, and they are complementary to what you're doing and what you're providing, and you can come alongside each other and support each other in that way, that is pure magic. And that's my encouragement. If anything else, if I totally flop on anything else today, run with that. That's my one golden nugget that I can offer you today. It's people, because we can't do it alone. And I'm a huge fan of yours, Sam. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into the summit, is how do you find those people if you don't already have someone, or there's a new thing you're doing, or there's that whatever the with these kinds of jobs, being the independent entrepreneurs, being the the business owners, the musicians, we're all sort of that solo entrepreneur thing. Finding a network where people have valuable, and it's not snake oil salesmen. That's a big thing I find that's really difficult, or it used to be really difficult to find really good resources that weren't just fluff. And now I think with like the UMBS, you're curating all the experts that aren't the fluff ones, that are the ones that actually know what they're talking about and can show with the resume to prove. Where I think, before things like this came up, because I was a part of it last year, and that was a lot of fun. We can talk about that too, but it's the idea that there's a sort of just a central place where, so I was at NAFME recently. There's tons of those for public teachers, tons of conferences for public teachers. But for musicians, private educators, and solo entrepreneurs, there's really nothing out there that, that is focused in the music industry. There's tons of entrepreneurs. There's endless entrepreneur conferences, but there's very few that are about building a business in the music sector. There's a couple that have grown up in the last couple of years, which I'm a big fan of, and I love the fact that that's occurring. So I think it's fantastic that this is sort of the place you can go if you're trying to expand your business, if you're not sure about something, if you just want to learn a bit more. It's kind of like the continuing ed for private business musician owners.
Yeah, no, that means a lot to me, hearing that, especially from someone like you, who is a doer and who is creating these new things for our community. So that means a lot to me. And I am one piece of the pie, and there are 5 of us this year.
Awesome.
Here's a great opportunity for me to actually introduce myself now in UMBS, in case anyone's like, who is this crazy chick? So my name is Heidi Begay, and I am one of 5 people who are organizing this. I would be remiss not to mention that our mutual friend, Dr. Garrett Hope, is the founder of the Ultimate Music Business Summit, and he onboarded Arthur Brewer and myself 2 years ago, as he realized, or a year ago, we're going into the second year together. He realized like a feat like this, a summit like this, takes more than just one set of hands. And I really don't even know how he did it the first year all by himself, but hats off to him. So it started off as, our first annual summit was in 2021. Last year was 22. And now we're going into the 3rd annual event, 2023. And every year it just keeps getting better. And so we've actually onboarded 2 interns this year. So massive shout out to Serena and to John. They're helping with the website and corporate sponsorships and podcasting, marketing it and getting the word out. But it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I wouldn't be surprised if we onboarded a couple more executive team members next year, or 4 total interns, because it's just getting bigger than what maybe the 3 of us can handle, the 5 of us can handle. But anyways, I digress. The Ultimate Music Business Summit for this year is a 3-day event, and it's scheduled for January 5th, 6th, and 7th, 2023. And you can get all the information, again, in case I forget, through musicsummit.biz. That's musicsummit.biz. And the one thing, oh, cool. Thank you so much. And this year we have close to 30 presenters. And they're people just like you, Sam, who are the action takers, the doers, creating new offerings and putting it out into the world. So that way, performing musicians, teaching musicians, innovators in the music community can really grab the knowledge that they need from the experts in order to thrive in their music business. So these 30 people who we've accepted their proposals for this year are musicpreneurs who've been in it for maybe 1 or 2 years, all the way up into 20 years of experience. And we can all learn from each other. And there's an array of topics, all the way from actually getting started, thinking more entrepreneurially, all the way to enrolling your ideal client into your offerings and everything in between: copywriting, corporate sponsorships, health. The list goes on and on. So I'm really proud of this collection of presenters that we have this year, the topics that we've chosen to offer the community, because we really truly mean this. We really want to see like musicians thrive in 23 and beyond. We don't want you guys to have this, and I've been there, I totally empathize. We don't want you to have this starving artist mindset. We really want you to see yourself as a functioning, thriving business. And what does that mean? And, this is one of my soapboxes, Sam, that music school doesn't teach us to think entrepreneurially. They teach us how to play our instruments well, play the right notes in the right time, in tune, but they don't offer, these business skill sets in order for us to thrive in today's market. And that's unfortunate. And so thank goodness for the Garrett Hopes of the world to see a problem that needed to be solved and say, all right, we're going to gather the troops and we're going to create this resource for the public so that way musicians can thrive.
Absolutely. And that's what I think is so amazing about it is, so I mean by like continuing ed, is that like, this is what you do, because there's very few, I'm short of, I can only think of like one or two schools that have programs that focus in like music entrepreneurship. And that's new stuff. That's really new stuff. And that's the thing. So if you've got a degree from anywhere in the last, if your degree is not brand new, if you've been in the industry for 5 or 10 years, your degree and your knowledge base probably did not include the entrepreneurial mindset and all of the other things and just the standard business things like you're saying. What I like about UMBS is the copywriting, the health, there's like yoga and meditation, I think was sort of like one of the themes of something last year and things like that, where I think that like that is the big picture of how it is to run a business, is that you need all of the different aspects. It's the little things that you don't really think about that end up tripping you up the most. And it's those like copywriting. Like I'm a terrible writer, so I should probably attend that one. I have, that's what I end up like. That's basically the first thing I hired out was like someone who can write well. I was like, all right, you're going to do the writing. I'll say what I want you to write, but you write it down. It's like, because I write like a child. So, it's like, which is fine. I understand. But for myself to learn, that's one of those things I didn't realize I was that bad. Like it was one of those, I didn't I'd never written copy for anything, and then all of a sudden I'm writing copy for stuff all the time. And I'm like, oh, these all phrases sound strange. Like I'm not a very good writer anyway. So having something like that is a resource that you wouldn't like, I wouldn't have even thought to look for it, is the kind of thing. Like so when I go to a summit and I see the list and I was like, oh, that's actually something I need. Like that's something I should sit in and listen to. And then you have this whole network of, like you're saying, people with 2 or 3 years to 20 years of experience that can show you sort of how the new way to do things, the old way to do things, the tried and true methods, the whole gamut of knowledge that just is hard to access otherwise. It's nice to have it all in one place.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah. So how did you end up, so you got involved for it last year. How did that happen? Did you attend the first year, or are you friends with Garrett, or was there just like a random email one day from like, hi, I'm help with some stuff, because honestly, that's how I get done, is just being like, help, I'm a stranger, but we'll be
No, that's a good question. And I actually had to take a step back and think about that, because same thing with like your world and my world, it just became. And I think it was because of Glory St. Germain's invitation to co-author a book together. And
cool. Okay.
Here we are at this Facebook Live. Remember that? That's how you and I met. And we were at this Facebook Live under... Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay, you're right. Yep, you're right. That's
and you forget that, because like since then, books have happened, summits have happened, corporate sponsorships have happened, podcast interviews have happened. So much has happened in less than a year, and it's like I've known Sam for only a year. What?
That is wild.
And yeah. I was thinking, because it was funny. I was prepared. My preparation for today was, hey, Heidi, how did you and I actually get to meet? I forget. And I had to go back in history, my memory log, and be like, wait, how did I meet Sam?
That's it.
And
Yeah, that
it was
yeah.
through Glory Saint Germain.
That's actually
But
really funny. You're right.
yeah,
I remember the roundtable interview with sort of like 15 people on. Yeah, that's so funny. It's funny,
yeah,
the little things, and like I met Glory. So that's like that's what makes this so interesting, is that like a lot of what has happened for me, and I'm sure you can understand this, is a lot of random happenstance. Like it's just random chance. Like um there was a teacher who saw Muzie on a Facebook group post, recommended it to Glory. Glory checked it out. She liked it. We started talking. A year or so later, she invited me to do the book. She invited you to do the book. Then we can, you know what I mean? Like it's funny when you
yeah,
think about those kind of chain of events, because it's sort of so random to happen, and then you all get to the place. But that sort of brings me back to why something like these summits, and why I every year, everyone knows we do 4 or 5 online summits that we sort of like sponsor and promote and push forward, because I think that this is a valuable resource. Like I've
mm,
said a few times already, is it's just having all the people in one place. That's
yeah,
usually the hardest part, is finding all the people. So it's like
yeah,
if they're just someone listed them out for you, it's like
yeah,
worth its weight in gold. So you just go get the pamphlet,
yeah,
read the back, and be like, okay, well, here's the list of experts that are in my industry. It's like, and if
yeah,
you don't know them, go and find out who they are and figure out if if they do things that are related to what you're trying to do. You know,
yeah,
and that's basically free. Like you can just go to the website, look the people's names up, and do some googling. Like
yeah.
that's not hard. You inevitably find a couple of people on there that do fit the mold of like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do a course, or I've always wanted to release a book, or oh yeah, I am terrible at writing, I should probably
Mm.
learn how to do that. Like when you start seeing those, you go, this is probably worth it, I should sign up for this. Like this is something
Yeah,
to get something from. And we, as independent business owners, we don't do as much professional development. What I mean by that is that it's not as organized. The professional development for, if you work in a corporation, there's programs that you can take through the corporation that will move you forward in the business. Where uh, we just make up our
yeah.
own programs, like so having something like this is sort of that version for the independent, business owner and musician. So
Ooh, I love that, Sam. Yeah. That could be like a tagline for UMBS.
yeah, that's how I see it.
Professional, yeah.
Yeah.
Professional development for the independent musicpreneur. Something catchy like that. Yeah. And
Yeah,
you're right. It is, because what we do as solopreneurs
mhm.
can be very lonely at times,
Yeah,
because there's so much independent work, and then as you grow, of course, you can onboard team members to make it bigger and bigger, and then you have a
right,
team surrounding you. But in the early stages, or even wherever you are in your music business, it can feel lonely at times, because if you don't schedule in those summits and conferences, if you don't schedule in the masterminds,
yeah,
then you don't have a network. And we are humans, we
right,
we crave that connection, that human to human connection, because that's how we're built.
right,
We just are. And
absolutely.
I'm so glad I love the way you think. And I'm, circling back to your question of how were you pulled into this UMBS world? My answer is I met Garrett through my own pivoting journey, going from academia into being a musicpreneur.
Mhm.
I had no idea that this was going to be my trajectory for my career starting in 2020. So I'm
Mhm.
going into the third year of my business, and I had no idea that I was going to be in this space at all. Having these conversations with owners of music software programs, like
Yeah.
what, and
Trust me, I feel very similar, because on my side,
yeah,
it's a lot like I never expected to be the owner of a music software company and
okay,
having like a podcast where I'd be speaking to experts from the other side of music world. Like this was not none
no,
of this was ever on my like dream roadmap thing. And that's not to say I don't love what I do, because I do
right,
like it. but and that's just life changes. But
Yeah.
it's the, you know what I mean? Like if we were to go back a few, 10 years and look at the map, it's just,
Yeah.
I want to be famous. I want to be a rock star. I want to be famous. I want to be a rock star. Like, that like childish, it's that childish, path over into the corner of oblivion. But the reality is you end up where you end up. And it's kind of funny. Like we were saying, it's sort of separate serendipity sometimes. But you and Garrett have kind of taken the pivoting thing to a whole new level, though.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of talk about that stuff a little bit too?
Yeah. So very briefly, so I'm a classically trained flutist. I have my doctorate in flute performance, and the trajectory was get that tenure track flute professor job.
Yep.
And I did that. I worked 2 years in applications from 2018 to 2020, all the applications. And I finally was offered a full-time job outside of Shanghai, China in Tongzhong.
Cool.
And I was excited because not only was I going to teach flute and piano, but the program was new where I was going to have my hands in building the music curriculum and the program from the ground up.
That's
and
fun.
anyone who knows me knows that I love organization. I love curriculum building. That's just who I am. And then the cherry on top was it was an international job. And I've always had, been bitten throughout my entire life by this international bug. I love to travel. I love languages and people from across the globe. Both of my families have a long line of missionary work. So my grandfather was born and raised in Africa, which was Central African Republic, and my dad was a missionary son outside of Tokyo, Japan. So neat. I'm married to a Native American. My brother-in-law is Kenyan. Cool. I mean, it's right. So it's very diverse, very rich. And so all of those elements, my point is, made sense to me. Yeah. I really saw and I really felt led to go there.
Right.
Basically got the work visa, and then the pandemic happened. You can't get into China. You can't leave China. No one can go anywhere. Yeah. And so, then I thought, do I go back to being a full-time job applier?
Right.
Because I mean, you have your Excel spreadsheet out and apply to this job, apply to that job. Did you send in your CV recordings, reference letters? It's a full-time gig.
Pretty much.
And I thought, oy vey, like, what do I do? And I'm, one thing that is good about me and also has some drawbacks is I'm very stubborn. So I won't let up. Like, I just have my eye on the prize. I'm like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And it doesn't matter the cost.
Right.
At some times. And that's the downside.
I get that.
So I say that because even once the job went away, I was like, all right, I'm going to get right back on the wagon and do it again. And my husband, who's my best friend, he, really took me off to the side and said, you know what, Heidi, like, think about this, really think about this, because I will support you in any way possible. But are you wanting to do the thing that's in your heart, teach, play, create?
Yeah.
Can you, like, let's think big. Can you just do those things on your own merit, on your own time, through your own resources? Or do you really want to go back to the drawing board and start submitting application after application again and again, asking for the search committee, please, can I do these things? Rather than you just do them.
Yeah.
And he made a really valid point. He really had to lovingly help me to open up my blinders to see what was around me. And so it's funny because during this whole time, as I was doing this trajectory towards this traditional path of academia, I had my podcast in the background. So this wasn't a fluke. I really see how everything lent itself to be, to help me in the space that I was in. And I just decided, okay, like, if I am going to take my husband's words of encouragement to heart and really start creating those things for myself, how am I going to get the word out? How am I going to find my dream clients? How am I going to, right? All these things that we ask about as business owners. And my podcast was there. It was
Right.
going on in the background for 2+ years. And so I just pivoted. I decided, okay, instead of it being a resume builder,
Yeah.
instead of it trying to catch the eye of the search committee to say, oh, wow, look at this fancy publication that she's done,
Mhm.
it's going to be my digital baby where I'm going to pivot it and let it be an amplification of my voice and
Mhm.
how I can serve my people and shine a light onto my offering so that way I can serve the modern day musician, the
Yeah.
modern day flutist. And it's a mindset change because if you treat it like a hobby,
Hmm.
if you treat a project or anything that you put out there, a creation, like a hobby, it's going to get hobby results.
Yeah.
If you treat it like an academic CV resume builder,
Mhm.
you're going to get those results. But now I had to decide, and it was funny because also in the background, I was banging my head against the wall because really I wanted 360 to be something else than
Mhm.
what it was. And I
Sure.
was wanting a return on my investment because
Right.
casting, like if you want to do anything well, some blood, sweat, and tears is going to go into it, and you're going to be pumping money into it, right? So I was pumping time and energy and money into my podcast, but I wasn't seeing that ROI.
Right.
And I was banging my head against the wall, being like, I'm going to throw this thing out. I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to throw it out. Anytime I put it off to the side or I paused it, it would be this beautiful boomerang that would just go, vroom, 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 and then just hit me in the face like, you're not letting me go. And it's so funny. And I'm so blessed to have been to see that and to grab it. But the point is, I was realizing, and this sounds so simple, Sam, but when you're in the heat of it and you're just like
Oh
it,
yeah.
hitting your head against the wall, like why am I not getting the results I want to get? I realized that I was planting corn and getting corn, but I was planting corn and I was wanting wheat.
Right.
It's something completely different. And that was the aha moment like, oh, if you want people to come into your funnel, I'm going to use that very loosely.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't sound,
I know what you mean though. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
If
ecosystem getting
Right.
yeah.
If you want to actually see that return on your investment, you have to think more businessly. And if you want that crop on this side, you need to plant wheat over here to receive those fruits. And so that was my big aha moment. And that's my the point that I'm trying to make is anyone listening to this right now, if you're in a season of pivoting or what am I pivoting into or banging your head against a wall, like I'm not getting the return that I want to get, start with the mind, start having those paradigm shifts, start having these conversations with the Sam Reddys and attending the UMBS summits and
Mhm.
pulling the mentors and coaches into your orbit so you can have that shift so you can see things perhaps more clearly
Yeah.
to gain that insight. So the whole point is I had that aha moment and I decided, okay, I'm going to have 360 be a marketing arm onto my business and what my husband and I do and what I do. And then comes in Garrett Hope. And he was saying the same thing that my husband was saying to me on this side. And I hired him as a career coach. He helped
Cool.
me with my pivot. He helped me to realize like it's just a shift of 2 to 3 degrees with your set of skills, and you don't have to throw it all
Right.
away
Yeah.
because he come to find out he comes to get to know me really well and I'm a very all or nothing type of gal if I and it's so black and white and he helped me to see the gray and um I worked with him for about 6 months, and then he invited me to be a presenter at the 21 summit. And then
Cool.
from there, a friendship was developed, a professional relationship, seeing colleagues, but a friendship was there, and the rest is history. And we just
Yeah.
got in the mail last week our official LLC for the Pivoting Musician.
Nice.
And we've formed a business together,
Yeah.
and I still have not physically met the guy.
Yeah, that's seems to be the way the world works nowadays. It's just
Yeah.
you roll with it. We were laughing about it because we went to that in-person conference and we were like, I'd love to meet some people. We didn't meet anyone that we knew, but it was
Yeah.
one of those where we're like, and then I was thinking about it. I was like, every single person that I work with, like you and Glory and Jamie and Eric and just literally
Yeah.
everyone. Never met any of them.
But guess what, Sam? That's
Yeah.
going to change because
I-
you and I are going to meet in July in
Is it? Yeah.
Canada.
Yep. So it's gonna be very interesting this year. I think there's actually like nothing is being officially officialized as far as I'm aware. I've
Yeah.
been alerted of about 3 or 4 things coming up that should be in-person events with sort of the crew that is developed from the last couple of years. It's so weird because this might sound arrogant, or maybe this is me overthinking it, but it almost feels like in the last 2 years a new industry has evolved, has been created that didn't exist. Where, and it's sort of, I think it's true because like you're sort of proving it with this summit, is that, like I said earlier, there's only a couple of these kinds of things. And like when I say a couple, like very loosely, like there's a few that do similar-ish things, but there's like, you're the only ones doing this the way you do it, right? And that kind of implies that like this is a very new thing, and this is only 3 years old. Muzie's technically really only about 3 years old. And it's kind of funny because I had a music education company since 2016. Muzie is a spin-off of that. From 2016 to 2019, the industry was kind of quiet. Like there was no like, the groups like and I think it's because of the pandemic, obviously, that everyone went online and all these like literally groups on Facebook started forming and people started interacting with each other. And then there's sort of digital like summits start evolving out of that. And then like communities from like the Muzie or like the funds or like what you're doing, you have these like pockets of people that are all like using products or using some curriculum that someone's in charge of. And then we sort of all become friends with each other and the industry starts to get like tighter and tighter. Does that make sense at all? Like, right?
Yeah.
It just feels over the last 2 years or so that there's been like a wave of people that have kind of come in or risen up. I would say more like I think we've all been here for quite a while.
Yeah.
But that's sort of what it means is we have all been here for a while. But I didn't know any of you guys 4 years ago. Like did you know everyone 4 or 5 years ago, or was it
That's a really good point. And I feel very encouraged with your insights because I know you observe the market trends and you're very in tune with like what's up and coming, what's predictions that you could maybe make for the market. And so to hear your insights, I feel validated and I don't feel as crazy. So thank you for
always nice, right?
Sometimes through the Flute 360 podcast or the Pivoting Musician podcast, things that I think will be in 10 or 15 years. And what you're saying right now is kind of like the seeds and the beginning of that trajectory of changes that are happening, but are to come 10 to 20 years from now. And I feel very validated, not to sound like a broken record, but I needed that today. So thank you. You're not wrong. I didn't know all these people 4 years ago because 4 years ago was the beginning of me having my pivot. So like I graduated with my DMA in 2018, and that's when the Flute 360 podcast was born. It was actually my dissertation.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Mentioned that because that's also very kind of avant-garde.
Yeah, that is very. I've never heard of a dissertation just being a podcast. Similarly, my final project in college was my original software product.
Really?
Yeah. So that's sort of like I sort of took a degree and was like, I'm just gonna do my own thing. And like they're like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like as long as you do stuff, we're cool with that.
But that just goes that these are two small examples, but perhaps these are examples of again these seeds being planted of the change that we are seeing now and the change that we predict to come.
Yeah.
And in 2018, I graduated with that DMA, and then for those 2 years, 18 to 20, I was on that academic path.
Right.
And then in 2020 with the pandemic, because the pandemic literally lovingly forced me to switch just like everybody else, then that was the new trajectory for me in my career among many other musicians as well.
Right.
So Yeah, and I think, and this is kind of going with what you're saying, like, I hope, and you are right. I do see like these forces and these musicpreneurs, solopreneurs coming together in these waves. And I
Yeah,
hope we come together even more and more and more and build this wave to be a tidal wave,
yeah.
right? Because like we can't do it alone. Like you and I have talked about
Mhm.
this before. Like you although you are Sam Reddy, and I'm pretty sure you could conquer the world on your own. But the Sam Reddys, the Heidi Begays, the Garrett Hopes, the Arthur Brewers, the Eric Branners, we are little powerhouses, let's say.
Yeah,
But when we come together, think of what kind of
right.
force we can create as a whole.
Yeah.
Because, in the early stages of my business, and I don't know if I shared this in our prior conversations, but, as you're starting off, that's why I started pulling the Gloria St. Germains and the Garrett Hopes into my world, because I knew I couldn't do alone. Because as a budding musicpreneur, I felt like I was at a massive redwood, I think that's the right tree species,
Mhm.
redwood tree, like in California,
Yeah.
with my little axe.
Yeah.
And I'm just going boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. And I see chips kind of flying,
Yeah.
but no real progress.
Yeah.
And my hope is, and for our industry, is that the Sams, the Erics, and you're a shining example of this, the Garretts, the whoever, we all come with our axes, but then it kind of almost evolves into this massive chainsaw, and we're
Yeah.
all holding the handle of the chainsaw going room, and then zoom, and then these redwoods start falling down because of the different levels of expertise and skill sets and knowledge. And I think that's because the market is shifting. We're seeing a change.
Yeah.
And in a way, you and the Eric Branners and the Garrett Hopes, you guys are the pioneers. You're
Mm.
forging this new path. And because this new path is being forged, we need to come together. It
Mhm.
can't just be Lewis
Yeah, right.
going into the Appalachian or
Yeah.
the
Yeah, no,
mountains
absolutely.
by himself. He needs a Clark. He needs a Sacagawea. You
Yeah.
can't be a pioneer alone. You need a team. And so all that's to say is that's why we need people. But
Yeah.
and, and that's why you can feel lonely, because if you are a pioneer going out with your little flashlight,
Yeah.
it's exhausting. But
Yeah.
when everyone brings their flashlights together, then it's like this floodlight. And we're like, okay, we can link hands. How can we do this together? So that way, the next generation of music students who are coming in have it that much easier and that
Absolutely.
much better.
I think that's it. That's 100% it. Is that what? And that last part is exactly it. Is that what we're if we're going big picture, what we're actually doing, what I'm trying to do, what you're trying to do, is we're trying to set up a future that is better than we found it, right?
Yeah.
And for us, music's our thing, so that's that's the area we're going to try to increase, better. We want more. The way I always look at music is, there's hundreds of thousands of lessons that have taken place on the platform now. And I love the idea that I've had an impact on the next generation. Like these are kids that are from, I mean, we span the gamut. But like I love the idea that there's kids on our platform right now who very likely could be the pop stars and the big rock stars of the next generation.
Mm,
And it's not unrealistic at all, because I mean, we cover the
mm.
globe literally. So, and there's lots of people, on there. So the idea that you actually have this community of people that are learning in a new way, a more effective way, and then you have an impact on that generation. And really all I care about is more better music. I just want to be old sitting in a chair and be able to put on new stuff and not be grumpy and be like, I only listen to old things because new music sucks. Like I want to be able to be like, new music is awesome, and just play it constantly and be like, yeah, and I had an impact in making this happen. And I think that's
Yeah.
where we all have our little, like, that's my bubble. That's my little, like, where I come from. And you have yours, and Eric and Grant and Glory, and, everyone kind of has their thing. And like you say, if we all come together and we start connecting those and we start connecting our communities, because I feel like we've all kind of individually built like a community of very similar people. And I mean, quite literally, a lot of our
Yeah.
people
Literally.
like literally all overlap. So like, the kind of people I know for sure that that I know that they know. So it's cool
Yeah.
to see that. I can probably think of like 10 people off the top of my head that
Yep.
all 5 of us probably know like decently well. And then
Yeah.
cool is I want to see that turn into 100 people. and then
Yes.
1,000 people. And then in those people, you're going to find experts that we didn't know about, that people that maybe haven't built something yet, or weren't sure how to get themselves out in front of people. And even like being able to apply to present at the summit. That's a way now that anybody who might not have the traditional avenues of, like, you know, might not have a big business, they might not have a podcast, they might just be teaching and be really good at something and have this expertise in this one thing. They could come in and share that with the world, and benefits us because we didn't know that thing, benefits them. You know, it's sort of win-win no matter how you look at it. And I mean, for me, I look at education as a no loss. You know, it's sort of like you can't lose. So more is better. There's, you know.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. Yeah, continuous learning is my jam. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. And even though like we have an official title, the three of us, Arthur, Garrett, and I, were the executive team,
Mhm.
right? And I pride myself in that. But
Totally.
I'm also attending UMBS as a presenter,
Yep.
but as an attendee, because I need
Absolutely.
to sit and learn. And it's funny because like Garrett, Arthur, and I tell the boys this all the time, you know, when we sit in meetings or when I do an email. Like, for example, Arthur is amazing. And I learn from both of these guys so much all the time, even in emails and responses. And I hope you don't mind, Arthur, that I'm saying this because I absolutely love your feedback. There was an email where I was going back and forth with said partner, and I was negotiating and everything. And he noticed that I had a lot of money knots wrapped up in my language. And he said, "All right, Heidi, I'm going to throw on my mentor coach hat for a half a second. Can, just so you know, I'm in this space." I'm like, "Okay." And I sat in that chair of being a student and
Yeah.
learning, because we have to keep learning. Else, because if you say I know everything, then
You don't
it's
get
kind of,
very far.
yeah, you're not going to get very far. So, to be, and that's why I respect Garrett, Arthur, and all the presenters and friends like you, where we share these different hats with each other in these relationships. Like, all right, Sam, I'm going to come right now and be in this podcasting coach hat for half a second. And
Right.
then we can switch out and be like, all right, Sam, like, cool. What food are we going to eat in Canada, in July? And be friends. And that's why I love working on this team so much, is because, like, even though Garrett and Arthur are my colleagues and my friends and my peers, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm their student.
Yeah.
And when I come into UMBS, I get to put on that student hat to sit down, and kid you not, I pull out my tablet, my stylus, and I am taking notes like crazy about copywriting and all the different topics that we have. Oh, another topic that your listeners may really love is studio building. How to get to six figures. And I'm going to say that full out because we got a lot of heat from people, through the community. Like, you can't be a music studio teacher and make six figures.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. There are people who are doing the thing, and they are teaching you tangible steps, do steps 1, 2, and 3 to get you started on the right path so you can reach that goal. And those gems are priceless. They're invaluable. And that's why I love coming to this, because I get to wear those different hats and be, yes, the organizer and go in and present, but I'm soaking it in like a sponge because I need to, because going back to the top of the hour at the top of our conversation, it's my professional development time.
Yep, that's what it is, isn't it?
I need it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Is that there does become sort of this. I mean, I at least have like a desired for like the continue learning side of things. Is like I want to see what's out there. I want to see what's next. I want to hear from the experts. It's actually funny. We just got a comment on the on this thing, and it's Josh Gillis, and he was just asking how to apply to speak at the summit, because he does a lot of work with Web3, NFTs, and the metaverse, and how can that impact studios in the future. And so, hey, Josh, I'll just say now we'll have you on like next week on the Muzie show, and we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
Because that's right up the alleyway of what we're doing here. And that's actually kind of funny. That's almost like that is literally like a real life embodiment of what we talked about 5 minutes ago. It's like how our networks can create in sort of a random chance. And Josh is really like, he's definitely a person to talk to. So that's
can I butt in?
Yeah.
Josh, You can email me at heidikbigay@gmail.com. You can go to my website at heidikbigay.com. Reach out to Sam. Sam obviously is a mutual friend of ours. And now I have a friend in you. Reach out to Sam and Sam can maybe start up a group message. But we would absolutely love to see your proposal for 2024. And NFTs is a hot new topic and a hot new thing. So I would love to be able to have the UMBS attendees pick his brain and for him to share his level of expertise. So definitely. And I think wow, we're already thinking of things for 24. I love it. So that's great. And actually, I haven't even told this to Garrett yet. And he's going to be like, oh my gosh, Heidi, what are you getting me into? But one of my ideas for 24 is in person. That's something I haven't even brought up to Garrett yet because people are
the logistics. Let this one happen and then worry about the logistics.
Yeah, I won't bombard him just yet.
I understand. It's funny.
But no, yeah. So anyway, so for Josh, what we did this past year, and we might implement again for this year, I think the deadline for 23's proposals, they were due, I believe, in July or August in the summertime. So we might have that same setup. So be following us, and anybody who's listening to this, follow us through social media, get onto the UMBS mailing list. And I say that because then you won't miss out on these announcements and deadlines. So if you go to anything Ultimate Music Business Summit, sign up for those things or follow us. So then that way you can see the deadline for the 2024's UMBS Summit. But thank you, Josh, for inquiring. I love it.
Let's see if I can grab the link and throw it in the chat too. But yeah, isn't that funny? That's like a living embodiment. I don't know if this will send to everybody or just go to nowhere. So I'm trying to send the link in the chat. So we'll see. That's like a living embodiment of exactly what we talked about, like the networks that you can create. And I almost titled this, but I didn't want to title this call with out talking to you, and then because it pushes a trajectory on the topic. But I was actually going to say the UMBS, the Music Business Summit, and something like networking, how to expand your professional business portfolio or network or something like that. And that was the idea.
I love that.
In the back of my head was the way I see these summits is they're a networking event really at heart. And the thing people I think misunderstand, or maybe I just misunderstood it about conferences and events like this, is that the networking can occur between you and the other participants, not just you and the speaker. It's great to go and meet the speakers. That's wonderful. But everybody else who is there is in a similar boat you are, and might also have exactly the advice or knowledge that you're looking for. So it's sort of like that sort of the external networking that I think makes these things so valuable. I think that's a good example of it happening.
I love that. And it is a fine example. I'm so glad you brought that up, because for me, I empathize completely. Being a flutist, our big shindig is the National Flute Association.
Right.
And if you see this thing, it's ginormous. It's 5,000 flutists coming together, and you're like, wow, there really shouldn't be that many flutists in one place, but there is. And we run off from recital to masterclass to workshop, right? Like a chicken with our head cut off. And I think, myself included, we forget oh my goodness, I have a pool of phenomenal players and teachers and inventors, innovators all around me. I can take a hot drink and be like, hey, do you want to sit down and have some coffee or tea with me? Let me pick your brain.
Literally
and from anyone. And from those interactions, inspiration unfolds. And when that inspiration gets going and you got that mojo going, what is possible? How can we collaborate? How can we partner? And a lot of times, that initial initiation perhaps isn't fruitful right away. And that's okay. Somebody, you've got their business card in your wallet, you've made the introduction, and it can be another season where you guys can partner and collaborate together. It can be a whole nother year. I've reached out to flute companies in the past through 360, and I've received a kind no. Now's not the time to partner. I'm like, okay, totally cool. I wanted to, at least I know. And then a whole year later, they'll come back with an even bigger and better idea. And they're like,
Totally.
now's the time. Are you down?
Yeah.
Can we do this thing? I'm like, heck yeah.
And that's
So the
funny
whole
from, yeah.
point, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's funny from my point of view because I've had the similar thing from the business side of having to say no, but actually being
Yeah.
like, I actually really do want to do this. I just literally can't. Like, there are
Yeah.
other things in play that like stop. I might be the boss order, but I don't have unilateral control to just do whatever the hell I want. You know, like there still is checks and balances that keep things afloat. And no matter even it sounds like it's going to be a good thing, there are like legit reasons why like this year you like I didn't submit a proposal for the UMBS this year. I didn't have time. I've been working way too hard on this rebuild of Muzie. I'm completely focused mentally somewhere else right now. And that's
Yeah.
actually why we wanted to have this hot podcast sort of thing
Oh, thank you.
create, because I was like, I can't put too much thought into actually like presenting something that would have value and meaning while I'm in the middle of like, and that week will literally be like as we're launching all the new stuff. So it was like, so for me,
it was not a good time.
Yeah, like it's like I literally have to take my priority list and be like, this unfortunately just has to be on the top.
Yep.
And sometimes it does mean that you don't get to do something you wanted to do. And like that's just the truth of being a business owner. But you can also do things like this or create other ways. And one really quick to kind of bring this together, as you were just saying about with networking at the conferences, I met in 2017, I went to Texas to attend the NAFME conference as just an attendee. It was when I had my other business and I wasn't really sure what to do, or we didn't have a booth. We had no idea like kind of how to get into the market. So I went as an attendee just to scope it out. And I met this lady there. Her name was Sarah. She's super cool. We became really good friends. She was just another attendee. And so we ended up just hanging out and going around and like checking out all the seminars and stuff. And then we just kind of stayed in contact over the years. She lives in Seattle. I lived in Boston. So, and then like one time we met each other again in person, just on a fluke that she happened to be in Boston. So like we got coffee. And then years later, we started writing a music book together. And that's still in the works. We'll get to that. We'll finish that one day. And then we started, and then she introduced me to Eric Branner and the Fonz people. And that was a huge network opener for me. And Eric's become one of my good friends now. And that's, that brings into this network. And it's just those tiny random connections that make it happen. So to sum all of what I think we're saying up is that you should attend the UMBS this year because, or I guess it's technically next year. Weird. But I think at the minimum, you'll find an expert there who will resonate with you. Better, you'll find other colleagues, other resources, a whole community that you can now become a part of. And, something that we at Muzie obviously very much support and want to see continue. Like you said, something in person next time would be awesome. Like, we'll go to Canada next year and have something in person. And I hear things maybe in Seattle, who knows, something could happen out there next year too. So like, there's I love that idea. And as much as we do online stuff, I still want to get in person. Like, I feel like there's like a misunderstanding because like you host a podcast or like we do Muzie and it's all online software and people are like, oh, well, it's all digitally. Like, yeah, but we still like to hang out and like get together and, high five, hug, jam session. Like, that is too. So, as much as we push the digital and we say digital is great and this and that, we still actually want to have those in person sessions. That would be great for the future.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much to look forward to. And you're right. And I loved this gem that you are wrapping up this conversation with, and it's people and getting to know people and pulling people into your orbit. And things and resources like UMBS give you that space to do just that. And we have seen UMBS attendees actually sign book deals, become a performer for a composer's producing, I'm losing my train of thought here, I apologize, but newly commissioned works and putting it out through like performance tours. We have seen music owners and connect with their clients, but then even like attendees have created podcasts together. They've created books together. They've created these opportunities for themselves that wouldn't have been possible if this didn't happen,
Yep.
where people made those connections so that way they could, just be fruitful together. And I
absolutely.
absolutely love that. I think that's why I do this, is because I want to see those connections being made. And the whole team says thank you yet again, Sam, for your time and your graciousness to be through your platform. And they send all their love. And we hope to see you there at UMBS. We really, we don't bite, I swear.
Yep.
We would love to be in communion with you. And like Sam said, he's going to drop all the links below, but it's musicsummit.biz. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, because we want to see you thrive in 23.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for hopping on and, having this conversation. I think I hope everyone from the Muzie community takes advantage of it. And just thank you again for creating and being a part of such an awesome resource.
Oh, thank you, Sam. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right, everybody. We will see you next week.